In old Shanghai, there was a house people spoke of only in whispers. They called it house number 37. It wasn't just an old building, it was said to be cursed. Everyone who went inside changed or never came out at all. House number 37. It is not simply a place, it is a haunted place, a place everyone tries to forget. In the winter of 1956, when the city's breath froze against its own reflection, there was an anonymous call. A number of criminal police were dispatched to investigate an ancient villa known as the strangest ancient house in Shanghai, Lin family house number 37. The story goes that in this ancient house, there was a large and thick pool of blood that disappeared along with the owner of the house. And then the only person who knew the incident also died suddenly for unknown reasons when he was temporarily detained. In the end, how many secrets are hidden inside this mysterious Lin family villa? The thrilling story surrounding the haunted house number 37 in Shanghai. Are immortals real? The cold descended upon the city in the winter of 1956, freezing the city's breath against the glass. It was in this unforgiving chill that a nascent officer's career began. A young police officer, fresh from the academy, was assigned to the precinct covering Exing Street. One night, as dawn approached its quiet shift change, the police station's phone, a rare, public-use instrument, rang. The young officer answered to a sound of gasping and a cacophony of distant noise. The voice that whispered from the receiver was unsettlingly neutral, neither distinctly male nor female. "I have killed someone," the voice confessed. "I called to surrender." The caller gave an address, a residence 3 streets away from the station. A knot of dread formed in the young officer's gut. He reported it immediately, and a team of detectives, including himself and a seasoned older officer, was dispatched. They arrived at an oppressive darkness, a silence so profound it felt like a presence. The older officer fixed a stern gaze on his junior. "Where is the murder?" Shaking, the young man answered. "House number 37. The structure was a 2-story brick villa, its small yard overgrown with the tenacious weeds of abandonment. The wooden door was barred from within. After failing to force the entrance, the officers smashed a glass pane and climbed inside. They were met not with the sight of a victim, but with a horrifying sensation. Their feet were wet. Flashing their torches across the floor, they gasped in unison. They were standing in a vast, thick pool of blood, black and red in the dim light. The air was heavy, choking with the cloying, metallic stench of it. Forensics arrived and offered a staggering estimate. The volume of blood on the floor could account for at least 6 people. This calculation immediately introduced a profound, inexplicable confusion. Neighbors confirmed that the current occupants, the Yi family who had moved from Hebei, totaled only 4. The man, his disabled wife, a son, and a daughter. Even accounting for a murderer, the math simply did not add up. The phone confession was untraceable, a consequence of the era's limited technology. The Yi family themselves were gone. Neighbors claimed the wife and children had left for her maternal home months ago, but inquiries there confirmed they had never arrived. Mr. Yi had also been absent for days. In short, an entire family of 4 had vanished, leaving behind enough blood for 6, yet no bodies and no suspect. The case was declared officially unsolved. Approximately a month after the grisly discovery, a fresh, chilling detail emerged. Children passing house number 37 after school reported a bizarre sight. The front door was wide open. The yellow police tape had been violated. The supposed crime scene now lay exposed. Had the missing owner returned? Had a thief invaded? The young officer and the team were sent back in. This second entry proved even more disturbing. The dried blood on the floor seemed to have intensified, now a repulsive mix of black and rust red. As they moved, a sound stopped them cold. The clear, bright laughter of children echoing from the second floor. They rushed up the stairs, but the room was empty. The only object present was a small children's toy car, a car the young officer distinctly remembered seeing on the ground floor during the first visit. The unnatural sequence of events, the disappearing blood, the surplus volume, the inexplicable sound, and the moving object, began to push the officers to the limits of rationality. The captain of the team, however, sought a firmer, secular explanation. He theorized the villa was being used as a covert base for spies or criminals. Under the cover of a gloomy, bitter night, a large police force was mobilized, weapons ready, to stake out the supposedly haunted villa. They waited until the first pre-dawn light. Then, as they watched, the lights on the second floor abruptly flared. It was not the steady glow of a lamp, but a flickering, volatile luminescence, like a sudden, spreading internal fire. Signaled by the captain, the police prepared to breach the house once more. The air inside house number 37 was thick with a silent, expectant menace. Upon entering, the three-man police team, elderly Officer Hua, the lead, a young policeman, and a third, unnamed officer, made an unnerving discovery. The voluminous bloodstains reported on the floor had vanished without a trace. Their investigation led them up the staircase. Reaching the second-floor landing first, Officer Hua stopped dead, his face a silent mask of pure, inarticulate terror as he swiveled to face the young policeman behind him. The sight that greeted the young policeman was unnerving. The second-floor foyer was unnaturally bright, a stark, silent stage even without their flashlights. The expansive room was dominated by a large dining table. Upon it lay a severed human arm, impossibly pale, with beads of fresh blood dripping rhythmically onto the polished floor. The horrific tableau was shattered by a sudden, panicked shriek from the rear. "There is a ghost!" The young policeman whirled around just in time to see a shadow, something unseen, dragging the third officer away. The victim's face, frozen in a mask of ultimate dread, was the last thing he saw before the man was pulled out of view. The young policeman, limbs heavy with paralyzing fear, could only watch. The auditory horror then began. The scratchy, distant sound of an old radio accompanied by the unsettling laughter of a child. The sudden, absolute extinguishing of all lights plunged the house into a suffocating darkness. And then, silence. 10 agonizing minutes passed before the police detail waiting outside, having heard nothing and seeing no sign of the entry team, finally stormed the house. Of the 3 officers who had gone in, only 2 remained, Officer Hua and the young policeman. The third officer had simply vanished into thin air. Back at the station, the young policeman recalled a fragmented memory, a fleeting red shadow just before the lights died, and his colleague's final, choked scream. The investigation found no secret rooms or logical means of escape. The missing officer had seemingly evaporated. The case was too bizarre, too heavy with inexplicable gaps, and was quickly shelved. The trauma shattered the investigating officers. Officer Hua, citing an unstable mental state, immediately requested early retirement, and others sought transfers. Only the young policeman remained, bound by the police chief's strict, confidential order. The public must never know the truth of what happened at house number 37. 2 years later, in the winter of 1958, a new lead emerged from an unrelated investigation. Following a tip, police arrested a leather repairman named Hua as a suspected member of the Yiguandao, a secretive, persecuted religious organization. A list of members recovered from the repairman contained a name that violently reopened the cold case: Yitian Guo, the last known owner of house number 37. The arrested repairman provided a chilling clue. He claimed to have known Yitian Guo since 1924 in his hometown of Henan, and to have encountered him a month after the strange events at the house. This sent the police reeling, as Yitian Guo's official identity card listed his birth year as 1933. The repairman swore by his account, stating that when he last saw Yitian Guo in November 1956, the man had not aged at all. In fact, he appeared younger than when they met decades earlier, impossibly younger than the repairman himself. He only recognized him by a distinctive mole on his face, a feature he linked to a mythical title, the destroyer of the fairy country, and referred to him as Yi Da Hu Fa, a spiritual guardian. A month after his interrogation, the key informant, the leather repairman Hua, was found dead in his prison cell. He was sitting up, facing the wall, his complexion unnaturally rosy, not the pallor of a sudden death. Autopsy found no cause of death, no injuries, no signs of poisoning. His cellmates reported he had been speaking strangely to the wall the night before, alternating between whispering and arguing. Upon investigation, police discovered a line of indecipherable characters scribbled on the wall where he had been starring. The mysterious inscription vanished shortly after its discovery. Undeterred, the investigation team delved into the records of Yitian Guo. They made a final, startling discovery. Mr. Yi Tianguo's father was also named Yi Tianguo, and there was no official record of the father's death. The central mystery remained. Was the eternally young man the repairman met the son, or the father, who would have been in his 40s in 1924? The case, born in a vanished bloodstain, and concluding with an unaging man, a missing police officer, and an inexplicable death, remained an open wound in the city's history, shrouded in the whispers of the Yiguandao and the fairy country. By the cruel winter of 1956, the very breath of Shanghai seemed to crystallize against the frozen glass of its own modernity, lending a sharp, desolate clarity to a case that defied all reason. The subject of the investigation, Mr. Yi Tianguo, was, according to birth records, a man well into his 70s. Yet, when he was last seen, his appearance was that of a vibrant man barely past 30. This alarming chronological paradox was the first thread that began to unravel the fabric of the known world for the police. The investigation had initially centered on a grisly discovery. As the government moved to demolish the Lin family's former residence, house number 37, construction workers unearthed a large, sealed ceramic jar 3 meters beneath the small back garden. Inside were the remains of the former homeowner's wife and 2 children, who had been missing for over 2 years. The homeowner himself, Mr. Yi Tianguo, was immediately declared the prime suspect in the triple homicide, and at a national level a warrant was issued for his arrest. Before his capture, the team pursued the few remaining genealogical clues, sending officers to Henan province. What they found deepened the mystery into absurdity. Mr. Yi Tianguo's father was also named Yi Tianguo. His grandfather, too, bore the identical name. 3 generations, 1 lineage, all named Yi Tianguo, and most chillingly, the official registries held no records of death for any of them. The terrifying implication was whispered in the corridors of the station. Could these 3 men be, in fact, one and the same? A single, unchanging consciousness masquerading through the decades. This suspicion offered a sinister explanation for why the leatherworker, Mr. Hua, who had known the oldest Yi Tianguo, had noted no signs of aging in the man he saw decades later. The search culminated with a raid near Longhu Mountain in Jiangxi province, and Mr. Yi Tianguo was apprehended and returned to Shanghai. From the moment of his arrest, he was a study in profound, unshakable lunacy. Locked in a specialized holding cell, he refused all nourishment, not a drop of water, not a single grain of rice, and offered no word, responding to all interrogation with a vacant, upward stare. The police were forced to arrange psychiatric evaluation. The grinding truth of house number 37. The search for the truth took a grisly turn amidst the government's demolition of the Lin family's house number 37. As construction workers broke ground in the small garden behind the villa, they unearthed a large jar, buried 3 meters down. Inside lay the decomposed bodies of a woman and 2 children. They were identified as Mr. Yi Tianguo's wife and children, who had vanished 2 years prior. This discovery propelled Yi Tianguo onto China's most wanted list as the prime suspect in a triple murder. Though the bodies provided a measure of closure, the case remained riddled with unanswered questions. What became of the police officer who had last shadowed Mrs. Yi? What was the source of the house's peculiar phenomena? All hopes for resolution hinged on Yi Tianguo's apprehension. The official investigation soon dissolved into a haze of unconfirmed, persistent whispers that circulated for years. One rumor suggested a tip led investigators to apprehend Yi Tianguo near Longhu Mountain in Jiangxi province. He was escorted back to Shanghai for interrogation, but the suspect was catatonic. He refused food or water, staring blankly, and was quickly referred for psychiatric evaluation. A terrifying revelation emerged during an X-ray. Yi Tianguo's skull was entirely devoid of a brain. Concurrent rumors detailed a forensic report on his wife and children. Despite having been dead for over 2 years, the bodies showed no signs of putrefaction. They were said to look like living people with a rosy complexion, defying all known processes of decay. In a desperate measure, police allegedly returned Yi Tianguo to the now demolished site of house number 37 for a reenactment. Upon arrival, He erupted in an unnerving, maniacal laughter that triggered a sudden, thick fog. A young officer claimed to see bright yellow, ethereal lights within the mist, accompanied by an invisible force that repelled him. When the fog cleared, Yi Tiangyu was gone. The 3 accompanying officers were found unconscious. Upon waking, they recounted a shared, horrifying delusion. They claimed to have witnessed Yi Tiangyu somehow transport them from the rubble to the villa's intact living room, heard the chilling sound of children's laughter from above, and watched as Yi Tiangyu dissolved into the wall like a gust of wind. Their frantic gunfire into the wall was met by a potent force that rendered them senseless. These fantastical accounts, even from the mouths of criminal police, were dismissed as scientifically baseless. The unofficial end. Ultimately, the authorities officially closed the bizarre file as a murder case, choosing the most pragmatic explanation for public consumption. Yi Tiangyu murdered his family and then committed suicide after his identity as a spy was exposed. Yet the questions persisted, fueling the legend. Was Yi Tiangyu a Taoist practitioner who achieved immortality? This theory could explain the shared name across 3 generations, the lack of aging noted by the leatherworker Mr. Hua, and even the preserved bodies of his family, suggesting they, too, may have practiced some form of dark magic or immortality ritual. Others speculated that he hadn't disappeared, but had slipped into another dimension. The unsettling facts, the missing police officer, the sudden, unexplained death of Mr. Hua in prison, the man without a brain, defied logical explanation. The case was never reported in the media, yet it became a deeply entrenched, widely circulated local legend, later catalogued as one of China's top 10 supernatural horror stories. The site of the cursed villa, house number 37, was eventually rebuilt into a sprawling dormitory for 20,000 families in Shanghai, burying the uncanny secrets beneath a monument of modernity.